Welcome to the Leverington Church message series, Beyond Order and Chaos, a biblical encounter with Jordan Peterson's latest book. For the full series and additional resources, go to www.leverington.org.
So, let me ask you an important question. At this moment, how concerned are you that a pack of raving wolves could march in here at any time? Okay, I have another question for you. Are you at all concerned that any minute a raiding party of barbarian Vikings could come into this room? No? All right, well, let me ask you this. How much time are you spending right now considering this question? Will the floor beneath you hold you? Now, let me ask you this. If any one of those three things was happening right now, how much attention would you be paying to what I'm saying right now? Like none? Like I'm out of here? The only reason you can pay attention to what I'm saying right now is that you're taking all those things for granted. If you were trying to evaluate everything that could be evaluated in this moment, like, are they safe? Are they safe? Are they a danger? What's that? How does that work? If all that data was coming in, you would be like a deer in the headlights and you wouldn't be able to think at all. The reason that you can pay attention to what I'm saying is that you're taking all these things for granted. And that's a good thing. And the reason that we can take so many things for granted, like the fact that it's warm in here and it's bright and there are no wolves or Vikings, is because we are protected by a wall of civilization. You and I, in this moment, are benefiting from layers upon layers upon layers of knowledge and resources and shelter built by those who came before us. We take for granted what is stable. We don't notice infrastructure. We take for granted both physical infrastructure and mental infrastructure. And so here's what happens. Because we have this privilege, we begin to walk around and look at old walls and old laws, and we go, why are they here? I don't even understand what the purpose of that is. Why is it even? We don't need these things anymore. Or we look at the state of our current society and we see that, hey, we are not at perfection yet. There are major issues here, especially issues of equality, equal rights, equal opportunity. And so then some conclude, therefore, let's just tear the whole thing down. Let's start all over. I am deeply concerned in this cultural moment when I hear people talking that way. And the reason is, I'm not trying to be mean, but I think they are literally ignorant. They are ignorant of how fragile civil society actually is. If you've ever been in the middle of a riot, if you've ever been in a third world country where the government has failed and people are walking around with machine guns and machetes, you have a little taste of how quickly things could fall apart. You see, we take for granted what is stable. Let's imagine, and the other thing is, not only are they ignorant of how fragile this gift we have is, they're ignorant of something else that makes them even more dangerous. They seem to be ignorant of how evil they could become if they got desperate enough, or how evil they could become if they got powerful enough, or how evil I could become in either of those situations. So let's think about what life could be like if you tore it all down. So imagine I did drop you off with nothing more than what you're wearing right now, okay? Imagine you have everything you brought into this room with you, and I drop you off in the middle of a Viking raid, in the middle of barbarians, and all they want to do is slaughter you and take everything you have for their own. Or imagine at this very moment with what you're wearing right now and what you have, I dropped you off in the middle of the night in Alaska in an icy wilderness where you can hear the wolves howling around you getting closer and closer. Well, now the system's gone. Now it's gone. You have no walls, no resources, no restraints on evil, no rules, no shelter, completely exposed from every angle. You're completely vulnerable. You don't know what to do. You don't know what's going to happen next. You're surrounded by danger and chaos, and life is totally unpredictable, and there's no time to think, no time to plan, no time to believe in anything for the future because you're just trying to survive another day. This week, I was listening to a young man who grew up in the Soviet Union, and he talked about his grandmom, who's 94. She's still alive, and she was telling him what life was like under the Nazis in Ukraine. Do you know what she and her 15-year-old friends talked about, their gossip when she was 15 years old? The thing that they were all talking about? It was this question: will we ever eat bread again? Will we ever eat bread again? It can all fall apart so quickly. So now, think about what primitive life for human beings was like, how civilization began. One day, primitive human beings got the idea, what if we built a wall? What if we built a wall that divided the chaos from the order, wilderness from civilization? We could keep the wolves out. And then inside, we would have to have some basic laws, because you don't want it to be just as crazy inside as outside. So you'd have to have some basic laws like, hey, if you're going to be in the city, in the walled city, we all got to agree on a couple things. You're not going to steal other people's stuff. You're not going to beat up other people. You're not going to rape, right? Some basic things. Well, what happens when you have a wall and you have this social agreement? Suddenly, life changes. Now life becomes predictable, dependable. It's pretty safe. Now you have time to think, to breathe. You're not like a squirrel, like what's next? You're able to think about a preferred future and imagine, hey, I could do this and the future could be better. So imagine a father within the walled city, and he spends his life taking the rocks out of the field to clear the field so that it will produce more grain. Well, he's just improved life. He's just made his situation better. Now he passes that on to his children. He transfers wealth from one generation to another. Now they have a field where the stones are already cleared. They don't have to do that again. Now they have more free time to make life even better. So now maybe they build a house, and now their standard of living gets better and better and better. And this is a good and beautiful thing, but it's not nirvana. There's a problem inside the city. There's people in it, and people are still people. So inside the city, things are still corrupt. Inside the city, there's still corruption and power and greed, and the laws are not perfectly fair, and the powerful try to manipulate the laws to their own benefit. And they've been in the same area, so maybe they start to get pollution inside the city. And maybe they start to use up all the resources inside the city. And after generation of laws, because laws are easy to make, but nobody ever takes away laws, and so bureaucracy begins to grow with each generation. We keep adding more rules and rules. And now all of a sudden, individual freedoms start to get taken away as there's a rule for this and there's a right way for that. And then it starts with, everything is normal now, and this is how you do life, and this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we do it. This is the way you should do it. This is the only way to do it. And now you have groupthink, and then people who don't do things the way we all expect them to do, now we consider them the weirdo and the stranger and the other. In fact, they're disturbers of the peace. They're stirring everything up. They must be silenced. And now what happens? Now critical thinking dies. Now new ways of thinking go away. Now innovation dies. And now the city is starting to feel more like a prison. And in that moment, those free thinkers look out over the city walls and they look out to the wilderness. And what they see there is the mystery of the unknown. And they think, yes, there's danger out there, but there's also possibility out there. There could be new resources out there. There could be new solutions out there that we never would have thought of if we stay in here. Out there, I can have freedom. Out there, I can have self-reliance, and it's an adventure of discovery. And now we come to the first question for today. Which side of the wall would you rather stand on? Which side of the wall? What do you say? So on the inside of the wall, in the city, this is the realm of order. It's the realm of the known and the proven and the reliable. And there's a sense of home. Like you think about your home, one of the great things about it is it's familiar. Like you know where the spoon drawer is. And when you hear a weird noise, you're not afraid of it because you've heard it 1,000 times before, you know. And so your home gives you this sense of order. Outside the wall, that's the realm of chaos. This is the realm of the unknown. Opportunity, but also danger, and access to the transcendent. Why do I say that? Because you can't be in control if you're going to be accessing the maker of heaven and earth. Like if there is a God, then he's in control and you're not. So God is the unknown one. The only things we know about God, according to Christians, is what he chooses to self-reveal. And so if you're going to encounter God, you're going to have to encounter the one that you don't fully understand, who is unknown. There is mystery there. And so where is the transcendent found? It's found out there in the unknown. So which one's better? Order or chaos? Order allows sustainability. Chaos allows possibility. Order allows you to get things done. Chaos gives you permission to ask, should we even be doing this? Are we even doing the right thing? Think about the great efficient order of a Nazi prison camp. That doesn't mean we should be doing it. Too much order means no freedom, right? There's a rule for everything, therefore there's no freedom. But what is too much chaos? There's no freedom there. How much freedom do you have when you're running for your life from the wolves, where life is so chaotic and so unpredictable that you can't plan any future? That's not freedom. So, what is the stance of someone who tends to embrace order, the order that arises from what is known? What we see in those kind of people is they tend to have humble gratitude for what has come before, and this privilege we have because of the generations and what they've done behind us. They tend to build on the past effort, so incremental progress. They tend to be loyal. They tend to be contributing to the community, and they are responsible. Okay, well, what is the stance of someone who embraces the chaos that arises from venturing into what is unknown? To those who see disruption and deconstruction as the way to progress. Well, they tend to be bold risk takers, questioning how things are done, questioning authority, going it alone, not caring if they're misunderstood, discovering new things, creating new order, and adventurous. All right, well, who is the person who tends to prefer order? If we gave them a label, that would be the rule follower or the manager. Who is the person who tends to prefer chaos? If we gave them a label, it might be the rebel or the creator. So let me ask you a question. Man, this is a weird sermon. Where's this going? Hang in there. Let me ask you a question. Was the United States of America created out of order or chaos? Was it created by rule makers or rebels? There were some major rebels questioning the authority of the established order of the King of England. But then what did they do? They created a new order. They made a written document called the Constitution. You talk about order, and those aren't suggestions. It's like, if you want to live here, you will comply with this. Wow, it seems like you needed both. Okay, so what kind of people do you want for a healthy society? Rule followers or rule breakers? Yes. What do you want for a healthy church? Rule followers or rule breakers, those who will question authority? Yes, you want both. And that's God confirming what I'm saying right now. So I want you to just think about this. And then, okay, so you need both, but when's the right thing? When is it best to be a rule follower? And when is it best to be a rebel who questions established authority? And how do you know what the right thing to do is in the particular moment that you're dealing with? These are the questions that Dr. Jordan Peterson wrestles with. Today, as we begin this new sermon series, we're calling it Beyond Order and Chaos, 12 Tools for Living Well in the Real World with God. And we are looking at the teachings and the questions of Jordan Peterson. Well, why would we bring that into a Christian church? Well, let me start with this. The New York Times called Jordan Peterson the most influential public intellectual in the Western world right now. He stands at the boundary of the known and the unknown, and he asks really interesting, important questions, and he's trying to wrestle with what exactly is real. And here's the really interesting part. Okay, so he was a psychologist, he was a professor at Harvard, he was a professor at the University of Toronto, but he has developed an incredible following that was underground, like it was organic. It wasn't being pushed by the media. It wasn't being pushed by established marketing. It was just people listening to his podcasts. And what's really interesting is, well, let me put it this way. Do you know who first introduced me to Jordan Peterson? My son, when he was a junior in high school. These boys who were juniors in high school, the people we were told have no attention span and only want to play video games, these are the ones who are sitting watching an hour-long discussion of two guys sitting in chairs talking about Nietzsche and Sartre and totalitarianism and freedom and does God exist? The very people that some people are terrified, they're becoming bitter and resentful and who knows, these are the very people that he was reaching, and he was teaching them to do the exact opposite, saying, don't be bitter, don't be resentful, don't be a victim, stand up, take responsibility for your life. You can make your future better than your present. And so I think this is someone that needs to be listened to. So is he, well, let me say this too. So the far left progressives hate him, and the far right nationalists hate him because he stands up against every kind of ideology. He studied Nazis, he studied the communists, and he sees the dangers of totalitarianism of any style. And again, he's not perfect, and it's not like we're looking like, oh, he's equal to the scriptures, but this is a person who is trying to figure out what is true and is asking hard questions. So his first book was 12 Rules for Life, an antidote to chaos, and that was aimed just at the people I'm talking about and saying, look, your life is full of chaos and you're turning nihilistic and you're becoming bitter and you're being a victim. And no, you need to turn this chaos into order. You have a responsibility to take responsibility for your life. But the second, and when we did a sermon series on that, so if you go to our website and you search for Jordan Peterson Meets Jesus, you'll find those podcasts. But his most recent book that came out just about a year ago is called Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. And see the black and the white books, order, chaos. And the reason is that once you have a foundation of order in your life, which you need to do, then you find out it's not enough. It's not enough both personally and socially. Personally, it's not enough because you get your life in order, but you need more. You need meaning. You need to encounter the transcendent. And socially, it's really important because societies need a lot more than order. If all you have is order, then you degrade into a nanny state, and then you degrade into a totalitarian state, and you definitely don't want that. Okay, but why do a sermon series on this? Well, I'll be honest with you. I want to tell you who I'm aiming at. I'm aiming at two groups of people. The first group I'm aiming at, and I want to try and talk to, are those of you who do not call yourselves Christians, especially those of you who are watching online. Many of you are interested in Jordan Peterson, but you've got doubts about organized religion. It looks a little sketchy to you. I want this series to be for you. I think it will be encouraging and challenging, and my prayer is that even through this, you might encounter the transcendent, that you might find the transcendent in maybe what seems like the most unlikely place, an ordinary little church. And also, though, I'm trying to talk to those of you who've been Christians a long time. Remember I talked about when it doesn't change, we just kind of we ignore it. I think a lot of us who've been following Jesus for a long time, we have domesticated the Bible. We take it for granted. We think we know what it means. Well, we know what some of it means. If you are all squared away and you think you understand the Bible perfectly, then how in the world is God ever going to get into your life and give you new revelation? Here's a simple test. When's the last time you trembled reading Scripture? When's the last time you trembled? And so I hope that is actually going to be part of this journey together as well. So you might say, wait, you want to talk about new ways of looking at things, new ways of thinking about things? You want to ask questions? You want to be innovative? Are you just trying to be a hipster? Are you watering down the gospel? No, I'm trying to apply the gospel to real life. You see, it is true that the gospel is so simple that even a child can understand it. And you might say, yeah, so why don't you stick with that? Because it is not simple to be a Christian in this world right now. It is complicated. It is, at least to me it is. We have incomplete information. We never have all the details. We have major media mediating reality to us. We have people interpreting the scriptures in multiple ways. We have all these groups going, you need to align with us. You need to align with us. I think it's pretty complicated. I think finding the narrow road takes a lot of work. And I think it's difficult. And I think there's a lot of ambiguity. So, you might say, this doesn't sound like Christianity to me. I mean, aren't we supposed to be holding on to the faith once given and passing it on? And isn't it true that heaven and earth will pass away, but the word of God will never pass away? It'll never change. Yes, I'm committed to that. So listen to what the word of God that will never pass away says in Isaiah chapter 43, starting in verse 18. God is speaking and he says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. Where is he doing it? Out in the chaos, out in the wilderness. My salvation was settled 2,000 years ago on a cross. But God is still at work now. We just sang, he's a way maker. He's making a way now. The future is unfolding before us. God is not done revealing. If God was doing a new thing, would you perceive it? Now listen to this. If God was doing a new thing outside the walls of the church, would you perceive it? Would you give it even a second thought, or would you just dismiss it? I think God is doing something. I think in a moment where we're seeing everybody getting polarized and settling for cliches and stupid things, we have 17-year-old little boys listening to wrestling with ambiguity and thinking again. How encouraging is that? So, how did Jesus say we were supposed to live in such a world? He said, quoting the Old Testament that does not change, the word of God does not fade away. He says to you and me today, you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And this isn't just a libertarian thing, you and Jesus, and you are to love your neighbor as yourself. There's a social component as well. So think about that. You are to love the Lord your God with all your mind. What does that mean? That means you have a responsibility to think carefully and deeply and not settle for cliches and question what authorities tell you is true and to wrestle with ideas for yourself. You are to love the Lord your God with all your strength. What does that mean? It means effort. It means working hard. It means taking responsibility for who I am and what my future will be. To take responsibility for what the future will be for me and for my neighbor. Okay, I get the loving God thing, but this whole idea of this deep plunge into order and chaos, I mean, really, is this necessary? Do we really need to think about this? And is this even biblical? Well, let's take a look at two scriptures, starting in Genesis with Abraham. Genesis chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house. In other words, step out of order, step out of the known, step into the unknown, to the land which I will show you. So I haven't showed it to you yet. You don't know where you're supposed to go. I'm telling you to get up and go out into the unknown. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. So you're going to be able to create a beautiful thing upon the face of the earth that will bless other people, but only if you're willing to enter into the unknown. Only if you're willing to leave what is comfortable and familiar, where you know what's going on. You need to enter and be willing to go where you don't know what's going on. Now, Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then he proceeded from there to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So in the middle of chaos, he's still worshiping God and seeking God as he's sojourning through the unknown. And Abraham journeyed on, continuing toward Negev. So, what does that mean? It means to follow God means to leave the known and the familiar, to leave comfort and security, to leave order and enter into the wilderness, which is chaos. And when did he do this? When he was 30? No, at the age of 75. Just when we're being told, take it easy. Or stop taking risks. You know, you're not young anymore. Or, hey, I'm just going to stick with what I already know. No, right then at 75, that's when his adventure began. You can't follow God and remain in control of your life. Faith, real faith, involves taking risks. It involves uncertainty, being willing to be uncomfortable, and being an awkward newbie. So think about this. Anytime you want to move from what's known to unknown, and you want to discover it, so now it's known, you're going to be awkward. So what do I mean? Let's say you want to learn to ski. I didn't learn to ski till I was 22. It was not a pretty sight. I mean, I was like falling. I couldn't even get up to the lift. It was terrible. But the only way for me to get to the point where I could ski last week with my kids was to go through this awkward stage. When you don't know and you're trying to know, you're a newbie. You're awkward. You fail. You make mistakes. You don't look cool at all. That is what is always required to move from what you know to what you don't know so that you then know it. You always have to go through this awkward, rough, uncomfortable process. So, which is really more attractive to you? Following God or safety, security, stability, predictability, and order? Which is really more attractive to me? This has been haunting me this week. Do you need more chaos in your life? Okay, well, that was Genesis. Now look at Deuteronomy chapter 4. God is speaking just before the giving of the 10 Commandments, and he says this. Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgments which I am teaching you to perform, not believe. Belief is important, but I want you to perform these acts. I want what you do matters. I want your behavior to really matter to you. You need to behave in certain ways. Only give heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently so that you do not forget, but make them known to your sons and your grandsons. Remember the day you stood before the Lord your God. So be connected to the past. Remember how these things are connected and take hold of what truths have already been given in the past. Don't just dismiss them. He declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. That is the 10 Commandments. And he wrote them on tablets of stone. What do we mean when we say something's written in stone? We mean it doesn't change. So you shall keep the statutes and his commandments, which I'm giving you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you. So you talk about order. Here are 10 unchanging principles for all times, all places, all cultures. This is the bedrock of Western civilization. And so when people come along to me and say, that was so primitive back then, and we've evolved, and we're so sophisticated now. We don't need that stuff anymore. I'm like, really? If you want to throw away the order and the sanity and the fairness of the law. Because remember, it doesn't say treat these people this way, those people that way. Judge people by the color of their sin or their sexual orientation or what culture they come from. No, you're to treat them the right way no matter who they are, even if you don't like them. That's called civilization. You want to throw that all away? I don't think that's evolving. I think that's devolving. I think you're heading to a more primitive understanding of the world. And parents, note, children and grandchildren, do not abdicate your responsibility to teach your children values. Young parents, do not abdicate. I know it's easy. No, you need to say, you know what? Society says this is right, but they're wrong. Society says that's wrong. But no, actually, that's the right thing to do. It is your job to take this truth and pass it on to your kids. You don't get to say, well, people do say, you know, I'm just going to let little Johnny figure out his own values. I don't want to impose mine on his. Are you kidding me? He's not going to come up with his own values. We don't come up with our own values. We adopt what's already out there. He's going to adopt somebody's values. It's either going to be yours or someone who doesn't love him near as much as you love him. You need to give him this, otherwise you cripple him. And what do? You take away his confidence. Remember what I said, when all the symbols are coming in and you have no way of what's important, what's not? If you don't teach your children this, it's like they're a deer in the headlight. How do they decide? They don't have the resources to decide. And here's the good news. Once you do that, once you build that moral platform for them, when they get in later adolescence, they'll be able to decide, no, I'm not buying that. Or no, I think you were right on this, but you were wrong on that. No, I choose to go this way. But if you don't get them to that point where it's age appropriate to begin to question the foundation you have, you're crippling them. They have to have a foundation first. And that's what this is implying. We need to pass it on. Okay, so I get this now. The 10 Commandments give me this structure, this interpretive structure that I can bring with me out into the wilderness. So now I'm in the unknown, but I have these 10 Commandments, I have the law, so I have a way of thinking about it. Like, no, that's a really bad idea, that's a pretty good idea. Like, these people, no, I'm not buying that, but these people, yes, I'm buying that because that lines up. Okay, so that's this general structure, but how about the actual details of my confusing, messy, particular life? I mean, I get the structure, that's big, the 10 Commandments, I get it. But how about the actual details of the issues I'm dealing with in my own life? What am I responsible for in all this? And what is the right thing for me to do in all of this? Well, I think the answer to that starts with a very basic question. Do you believe God when God says in Genesis chapter 1 and 2 that you're created in the image of God? Do you really believe that you're created in the image of God? Think about it. What did God do? He created ex nihilo, but then he took the raw resources of this world and he made order out of them. God takes chaos and turns it into order. I mean, think about drawing Adam from the dust. I mean, talk about moving from raw resources to order, a human being. But here's the deal. You are created in the image of God, and part of that image of God is you have the ability to take chaos and create order out of it. So I want you to really think about this. You have the ability to take the chaos and this disorder of the present moment and create a better future from it. So I have a choice. I can be depressed and overwhelmed and paralyzed by the chaos and the brokenness of everything all around me in the present, or I can act and take one creative step toward a better future. Will I do it? This is why in his first book, Jordan Peterson said, oh, you want to change the world? How about cleaning your room first? Now, he wasn't just smirking. He was making a really good point, which is you could actually clean your room and the world actually would be a little bit better because of it if you did it. That is something you can do. So again, I want you to just rest in this idea. First, you are capable of bringing new, good, beautiful things into existence in this world. Think about when you build a new friendship. It blesses them, it blesses you. Who knows what the ripple effect of that is to other people around you? What happens when you clear a path in the woods or you clear your room, a path through your room? Life's a little better. Like you've made a gain. Not only are you capable, you're responsible to do so. You are responsible to look at the broken pieces around you in the present moment, the raw resources you have, and say, what can I do to bring some order to this and move it slightly forward? It doesn't mean you're the master of your destiny. It doesn't mean you can do anything you want. No, there are forces at work that you can't control. There are powers at work that control you, but you can do something. There's something within your realm where you can move the chaos of this moment into order that's a little better. So my question for you this morning is, what is that? What is that for you right now? Where God's calling you to move the chaos into something better. It takes discipline and effort to be who God is calling you to be, and that's God's idea. So listen again to what Deuteronomy said. He said, only give heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently. In other words, take heed, pay attention to your life. We're so busy being passive and taking, what's going on in the world and what's happening over there. And we're just like these passive taking in of, no, pay attention to your life. Why are you thinking what you're thinking? What are you thinking? Why are you thinking what you're thinking? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? This is what you're responsible for. You're not responsible to have an answer for every social issue in the world. You're responsible for, what's happening, going on right here? Diligently keep your soul. Take responsibility. So here's the question. Will you refuse both mindless conformity and mindless rebellion? Will you think carefully and act deliberately and not just line up with the ready-made groups that are all trying to entice us to their side? Will you follow God out of the familiar into the unknown? Now I have to warn you, if you do that, some people will look at you like, you're ridiculous, you're a rebel, you're like irresponsible. And other people will look at you like, oh, you're so conforming, you're so compliant. But God will look at you and see you rightly and see his beloved trying to learn to ride a bike. He will see you striving for what is good and true. So here's your homework. We're kicking into this next week. This is what I want you to wrestle with this week. First, 2 questions. Here's the first one. And I've put these on the email that you all received. This will be up on the website as well. Which takes more self-discipline and effort for you? Either A, to maintain the order and consistency in your life so you can build upon past efforts and grow and develop through practice and habit. Is that what's harder for you? Or to continually expose yourself to new situations where you are out of control so that you can grow in knowledge and experience and perhaps discover new solutions. Which one is harder for you? And the second question I want you to ponder is this. What are the strengths and the weaknesses of being a rule follower? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of being a rule challenger? And where's your default? Which is your default? So I'm asking you to think deeply on these things as a way of honoring your Maker, as a way of being a good steward of what he has given you, this ability to think and wrestle and struggle. So this journey of the coming weeks is going to be challenging, uncomfortable. It may be annoying, but I think it's going to be worth it. And to be honest with you, I don't know either. I have not a predefinition of where we're going or what these answers are going to be. I'm stepping into the unknown with you. I haven't thought about a lot of these questions before. So we're stepping out into this together, into the unknown. But I believe that the God of Abraham, just as he went with Abraham, will go with us if we are willing to yield ourselves to his keeping. And we saw that Abraham, throughout this journey, he was building altars as he went. He was worshiping God as he went. That is what we are going to do in this series. And I want to end with this prayer from Psalm 90:17 that I hope will be kind of our theme prayer for the coming weeks of this series. It says this. Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands. Oh, that we might be aware of the presence of God, that we might be aware of the beauty of the Lord God upon us as we walk through this unknown together. Oh, as we try and take responsibility and make changes in our lives, or perhaps refuse to let go of something we shouldn't let go of, oh, that God would establish the work of our hands. So let's hold on tightly to Jesus and hold loosely to our prejudices. Let us hold on tightly to Jesus and loosely to our preconceptions and see what we can discover in the weeks ahead. Amen.
Thanks for joining us today as we strive to think carefully about our faith. You can help keep this ministry on the air by making a donation at leverington.org. For now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. We'll see you next time.